Hello YouTube, it's Chester Stay guys. Welcome to another tutorial. In this tutorial, we're going to continue where we left off in the last tutorial. As you remember, in the last tutorial, working with synthetic images. In this tutorial, we're going to be working with how to resize images and how to crop images in real time. So we're going to be using the image dynamic image enum from the image crate that we've been using, version 0.255. By the time you watch this video, it might be a little bit different, but I just want to let you know where it's coming from. And we're going to do copy and paste this code. I already copied it. Actually, I haven't. So let's copy and paste it into here. And I will show you what it does. And clear this, not to confuse you. Okay, what are we doing? What does the code does? We're bringing the dynamic image enum from image crate. We also bring a generic image view. We're also using a couple filters from image ops. I'll show you when we get there. Basically, we're working with this image. It's a $2 JPEG. And the reason I chose it is because it's symmetrical and it's Jefferson's face is in the center. I will show you what I mean by that. And we're going to be using these four methods. Like I said earlier, have different methods. We're going to be using some in future tutorials. In this tutorial, we'll do the crop and we'll also use the resize uh, methods. And going back to the code, what is the first one that we'll use is the resize exact, and it does not preserve the aspect ratio. And I'll show you what I mean by that. What I mean by that is that when you choose the width and you choose the height, it's going to stick to those dimensions. Regardless of what the image looks like, it's not going to preserve the aspect ratio. So if we save this, let's run it so you know what I mean. And when we run it and we look at this resize exact image, you're going to see that is a bunched up feeling, right? Because it's not preserving the aspect ratio. And that's what I mean. In some situations, it's okay. In this situation, it's not because it looks all bunched up. For other situations, we're going to do this one. And then let's say that you also want to create a thumbnail. This method will preserve the aspect ratio. And if I show you this image, the thumbnail PNG, you will see what I mean. It kept, even though it's a smaller size, it went from 1200 by 500 to a 200 by 200, it kept the aspect ratio. And in some situations, this is exactly what you need, especially for thumbnails. We'll go to the next method. It will be creating a thumbnail, but with exact dimensions. Now it's going to stick to these dimensions regardless of the aspect ratio. It's not going to preserve it. So if we look at this image, is the thumbnail exact? This is what I mean, because it's not worrying about aspect ratio. It's just worrying about the dimensions, and sometimes that's what you need. And finally, we have the resize to fill, and this one you will let it know what this fill width and fill height. Let's just do this so you see what I mean. And save it and run it again. And let me show you what it's going to do. It's going to fill the width and the height, but it's going to preserve the aspect ratio. And if it goes over any of these, it's going to crop it. And sometimes this can become handy for certain situations. And let me show you what the image looks like. Resize to fill. As you can see, it preserved the aspect ratio, which is great, but it crop sections that you might not want to crop. So always remember with these dimensions to play with them. Like in this case, let's say that you want the width more of it, let's say 400. And now if you run it and we look at the same image again, you can see that it's a lot longer, right? It's wider. It preserves the same height, but you know what I mean. You can play with the width and the height. But let's say that in some situations you want to just crop this part of Jefferson's face. You want the whole area here. In this case, there's another code that is more flexible, and it's this one right here, where you can crop and you have more control over the dimensions and the height and the width. And this is what I'm going to do now. And I'll override the existing code with this code. Okay, let's talk about it. Same thing, we're bringing dynamic image, generic image view. We're using the same JPEG image because it's symmetrical. Jefferson's face is right in the center, and that's what I want. But this is a little bit different because now you give it the crop width and the crop height. So you have control over that, but it's going to take the dimensions from the whole image and it's going to divide it by 2. So it's going to take half of the width and half of the height. And that is going to become the X and the Y where the cropping is going to begin with. And if I run this code, let me show you now the difference. When we look at this image, what is the name of it? Crop dollar PNG. Crop dollar PNG is this one. You can see that it kept to the 200 by 200, but at the same time still kept the aspect ratio. So now you can play around with the numbers. Let's say for the width, let's say that you want 300. Yeah, about 300. And the height, let's say that you want about 425. And let's try that to see what it looks like. And if we look at it now, much better. And in these situations, this is exactly what you want. You want to have control over the width and the height, and you can you can do the math depending on the image that you're working with. In this case, this is a symmetrical image, and that's why I chose it because as you can see, it's pretty symmetrical, so it's right in the middle. So keep that in mind when you're creating the X and the Y. It has to be according to your image. If you're using symmetrical images, then you can just use the same thing that I did. But let's say that you have some cases where the image that you want to crop is not in the center, right? It's in the right. So you have to make those changes accordingly. And all you have to do is play around with these numbers here and and you know change them accordingly. But this is the end of this tutorial. If you like this tutorial, please click the like box, subscribe to my channel, and I will see you next time with another tutorial. Take care.